Okay, we're just about at the edge of the Roman ruins that I looked at from the main square. This looks like a small theater, and apparently it's going to be used as such tonight. Tomorrow I'll come back and explore all of this. Apparently some Roman ruins here that were underneath this building that used to be here. You can see there's some modern support cement there, and just beyond it is where that large partially excavated area. Here outside the post office, these signs focus on Eastern European countries. Those do. Venezuela thrown in. Maybe the others are just in a language I can't interpret. The excavations are rudiment, although there's some reconstruction. But it's pretty darn neat to have this as part of your tourist infrastructure that you can develop over time. Just entered this beautiful park just off the square that I'd seen from the square early on. Just kind of walking through it now, looking for a couple of Chinese restaurants that are somewhere around here. Get these beautiful trees, the ivy covering the ground's what I found fun. In the forest I was in yesterday in Sofia, same thing, right in the thick of the actual wood. Actually quite lovely, even though it's been raining. This is an interesting sculpture. Probably more so at night when it's lit. This is the underpass for the main road between my hostel and the main square. And everywhere in Plovdiv, apparently you'll find these little outcroppings of the Roman city. And here's another example. Interesting to see this carving out here. This looks like it would have been a waterway here, but what was this? It almost looks like that rock there had some significant sculpturing on its face, now long eroded away or battered away. Same with these stones here. You can just see how the frame has been made in relief on both sides of this panel, on that one and even on that one. All of these rock faces seem to reflect that there was once something on them. Those vertical set of grooves may be relatively recent. Some informal access down into this large excavation area in front of the hotel and surrounding the post office. Here are these beautiful poppies in the rubble. Presumably at some time the city or the country will set about to fully restore this area as they have so beautifully some of the others that we've seen. At this time it's only a mess, a mix of the Roman and more modern infrastructure. But even looking there at that one wall that goes along there with those pedestals for columns, you can only begin to imagine the grandeur of this spot. Here it looks like there's been a wall restoration of some sort, and a couple of columns lying over, chunks of columns lying over there, maybe a pedestal to the right of them. But the only attempt here has been to roughly define what may be here, I suspect. Looking down this wall, it seems pretty clear that this was, I'm standing on a street. There appears to be some of the original stones, and here are other buildings, Probably a street went along that far wall over there. A column. This is interesting. Perhaps a lintel. I don't really know what it is. You can see some work on the stone, but probably it was found in the bottom of this excavated room and just put up on top just to locate it. But notice there beyond a much deeper structure with substantial walls, almost suggesting that substantial structure lay well below this grade. Here again marked with archaeologists' notation, but a groove leading to a post. Now this could have been for a large swinging door, maybe an entryway. Who knows what we have here, so let's go take a look. But it looks like that may have been a square base for a column, and it has some holes in it. You'll see if I raise the camera, if I can do this. I can't see what you can see right now, but it looks like there's two fairly large square holes and two small ones. These are probably for holding the column in place. Yeah, it certainly looks like it. But who knows what else was involved. There are two smaller slots, and there are two posts that look like they may have had metal in them. Two holes, three holes actually. And notice the groovings there. And we have to ask, was this a stone on the bottom as a pedestal, or was it rather on top as part of a lintel of some sort? And those little side grooves that look like antennae, did they guide the stone in, or were they, if they were in this position, did they drain water? But who cares when it's rock? And notice how a tree had helped disassemble this entire wall. And off to the side here, we're looking at the wall. More big chunks with a large groove. What purpose would that have served? And there what looks like part of a column, but who knows? There are a couple more pedestals, and you can see that that wall, or whatever it is, continues right into that building. And that must have been a fairly large, in other words, thick column from the base, size of that base. Now here, as I stand on the opposite side of that pile of rock that we're on, very irregular. Was this an inside buried in another building wall? And opposite of us, we're surrounded by walls. Again, is the grade I'm standing on actually a second floor or first floor? That it's all represents fill over the last 2,000 years. See how roughly is the surface of the upper part of this pedestal. My guess is that it was rough because they finished the pedestals in some kind of plaster to giving them ease of making that nice smooth surface. Here we're looking at that wall, certainly intended to be visible and massive. Modern vaulting of infrastructure that is either necessary enough to chew through these remains, or disrespectful enough, who knows. And here we are at this intersection then, and looking down another long street. And considering the drawing that we saw and how far in that direction is the beautiful ruins that we saw yesterday, this street could have gone on for quite a distance. And here with these rows of pedestals on the right and the buildings on the left and the walls that we see, it gives us a clue of how built up this part of the city was. Imagine that in our era we move big stones like that with big thick steel cables or iron cables and cranes. What did they use in their day? Slaves. And here what I think is a large electrical vault, but it appears to run underneath this line of wall and structure and columns. Now it's amazing that this has not been stolen in such a beautiful condition. It's so pretty, as many others have been surely stolen. This is a series of buildings. Again, notice we must be standing at some interesting level, since that goes so much deeper. Is this apparent wall of stone actually in its original position, or was it somehow the front face of these buildings here? I just don't have a clue. That's interesting. Here you can see what probably was, because I've seen this triangular structure before, perhaps a buttress for the outer wall, if there was a fortress wall here. And these other rooms just built up against the wall. But if I'm standing on a legitimate original wall, what was that space in between for? I'm just shooting back again at that intersection there and coming down along the left side. Some chunks of column and big blocks of stone. Here's some more rooms all along this side, and it looks like there would have been, well, I was going to say there might have been rooms to the right of this wall, but it wouldn't seem too terribly logical. It doesn't look like it. And yet there looks like the wall of another set of buildings, perhaps added after this first set on the left. Was that little square area perhaps a well or maybe a stairwell going down to something? Here just a storage area for some of the stone found, all of which can be reconstructed at some point, which I'm sure is the architect's goal. That almost looks like it's spherical there. Here a stone face with more elaborate carving on it. The same with its companion. But look at that. Is that a piece of a column? And yet it's got a squared off side. Did it sit against a wall? And why is it concave? Is that how they actually fitted those things? Concave to convex? A couple of old pedestals. Here appears to be the floor of either a patio or of a room, who knows. It looks from the wall and the slopes and the ramps that were designed to bring people down to this street level here and still used. Was once envisioned as an important place and then abandoned, perhaps in deference to the other areas that they have fully restored. Looking across the street, of course, there are some more areas. Those three arches there certainly have been restored. They look like, if the Colosseum in Rome is any example, hallways down to the seats in the Colosseum. But perhaps beyond that fencing is the Odeon, or the theater.